God our Redeemer, in raising Jesus from the dead, you showed us your power to defeat all that brings fear and sorrow to our lives. In his resurrection, Jesus promised to be with us always, yet we confess we are sometimes uncertain about your presence, unsure if we can trust the promise of resurrection for ourselves. Forgive us when we struggle to trust your goodness for us. Forgive us when we miss the signs of your love in our midst. Amen. Every year, during the Easter season, there's a spate of articles outlining the literal versus figurative possibilities for the resurrection. All of these articles speak on an intellectual level about the resurrection. When we talk about the resurrection, we are speaking about a profound mystery. At some point, we have to move from trying to explain the resurrection to experiencing the resurrection. Experiencing resurrected life begins with recognizing the risen Christ among us. That is the gift of Easter, and it is also the difficulty and challenge described in today's Gospel. Cleopas and his companion are telling the other disciples how Jesus appeared to them on the road to Emmaus when Jesus again shows up out of nowhere, interrupting their conversation. Peace be with you, he says. They see him, they hear his voice, but they don't recognize him. They thought that they were seeing a ghost. They know Jesus was crucified, that he died and was buried. They know dead men don't come back to life. This can only be a ghost, a spirit without a body. The tomb is open, but their minds are closed. They are unable to recognize the holiness that stands among them. They are continuing to live, think, and understand in the usual human categories. They have separated spirit and matter, divinity and humanity, heaven and earth. Whenever we make that separation, we close our minds. We deny ourselves the resurrected life for which Christ died. We lose our sense of and ability to recognize holiness in the world, in one another and ourselves. With Jesus' resurrection, however, God shatters human categories of who God is, where God's life and energy are to be found, and how God works in this world. Resurrected life can neither be comprehended, contained, or controlled by human thought or understanding. Jesus' resurrection compels us to step outside our usual human interpretations of reality and enter into the divine reality. And that new reality begins with touching and seeing flesh and bones, hands and feet, and broiled fish. Jesus said to his disciples, "Look at my hands and my feet. See that it is I myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." Then he showed them his hands and his feet. After this, he ate a piece of broiled fish in their presence. Flesh and bones, hands and feet, and broiled fish are the things of creation, the natural order. Mary, a woman created by God, gave Jesus his flesh and bones and hands and feet. She also gave him the stomach that would eat the fish God created. The very same flesh and bones, the very same hands and feet appeared to Cleopas and his companion on the road to Emmaus and then vanished from their sight, and now show up unannounced and unexpected amid their conversation with others. The resurrected life of Christ, it seems, is revealed in and through the created order. It is not, however, bound by the created order. Instead, the resurrected body and life of Christ unite the visible and invisible, matter and spirit, humanity and divinity. On the one hand, Jesus has a natural body. On the other hand, it is not subject to the natural laws of time and space. It's not one or the other, it's both. It's a new and different reality. The degree to which we have allowed ourselves to be bound by the created order is the degree to which we cannot see resurrected life and holiness in this world. We bind ourselves through our fears, sorrows, and losses, our runaway thoughts and distractions, our attachments and addictions to things, people, and even beliefs. Sometimes it's our unwillingness to allow or to trust God to grow and change us. In binding ourselves to the created order, we lose recognition of and the ability to live in the sacred. And that's the very opposite of resurrected life. Nothing can bind or supersede the grace given us through the resurrection. Unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional life. That is, I think, one of the most challenging things for us to see, believe, and live into. It is, however, the divine reality into which we are invited, not at some future time and place, but here and now. Christ, our God, longs and desires to open our minds to understand the Scriptures, to understand all that has been written, spoken, and revealed about Him in whatever form that happens and has happened. That's what Jesus did for the disciples, and it's what He does for us. This is not an academic or intellectual understanding. That the disciples are witnesses does not mean they now have all the answers. It means they now have the life Jesus wants to give them. They are witnesses based not on what they know, but on who they are, how they live, and their relationship with the risen Christ. The resurrected life is not acquired, it is received. It happens when we risk unbinding ourselves from the usual ways of seeing, living, and relating. This is not a rejection of the natural order. It is allowing the natural order to open and reveal something more. That's what happened for the disciples with Jesus' hands and feet, with His flesh and bones and the broiled fish. They saw and recognized something about Jesus, and in so doing they saw and recognized something about themselves. It happens for us too. Think about the time when life seemed more real than it ever had, and you touched or tasted life in a way never before. Recall a moment when your heart opened, softened, and you knew you were somehow different. Remember that day when you sensed something new was being offered to you, possibilities that you did not create for yourself. They just opened up. Reflect on that moment when you realized that you were okay and could again start to live. Those are the moments when Christ opens our minds to understand. They are moments of awe and wonder that leave us in sacred silence. In each of those moments, the one who is fully alive and risen, the Christ, is calling us to see and recognize Him, to join Him, and to discover new life. You are witnesses of these things, He says to us. Tell it, live it, experience resurrection. Amen.